The biblical account. One of the most dramatic stories in the Bible concerns the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. According to Genesis 19, God determined to destroy these cities because of their extreme wickedness. Abraham's nephew Lot, who lived in Sodom with his family, was warned by angels to flee before the destruction. As they escaped, the angels gave a clear instruction. Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, and do not stay anywhere in the valley. Escape to the mountains, or you will be swept away. Genesis 19:17. Despite this warning, Lot's wife disobeyed. Genesis 19:26 simply states, "But his wife, from behind him, looked back, and she became a pillar of salt." This brief account has fascinated readers for millennia, raising questions about what exactly happened to Lot's wife and whether there is any physical evidence for this biblical story. The search for Sodom and Gomorrah. For centuries, scholars debated whether Sodom and Gomorrah were real places or merely allegorical creations to teach moral lessons. The biblical text places these cities in the area around the Dead Sea, describing it before the destruction as well-watered and fertile, like the Garden of God, Genesis 13:10. Several locations have been proposed for the infamous cities of the plain, the southern Dead Sea Basin. A long-standing theory held that the cities were submerged beneath the southern portion of the Dead Sea. However, as the Dead Sea's water levels have receded substantially in recent decades, exposing the southern basin, no evidence of ancient settlements has been found there. Bab Edra and Numera. Since the 1970s, excavations at these archaeological sites on the eastern side of the Dead Sea have revealed evidence of Bronze Age settlements that were destroyed by fire. Many archaeologists, including Walter Rast and Thomas Schaub, have proposed that these may be Sodom and Gomorrah. Tal el-Hammam. More recently, excavations led by archaeologist Stephen Collins at this site northeast of the Dead Sea have presented another candidate for Sodom. The site was a major Bronze Age city that shows evidence of catastrophic destruction around 1650 BCE. The Pillar of Salt mystery. The account of Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt has been interpreted in various ways. Literal interpretation. Some believe she was physically transformed into a column of salt as divine punishment for disobeying the angel's warning. Natural phenomenon. Others suggest she may have been caught in the destruction, perhaps engulfed by salty dust and debris, or coated by salt-laden ash, creating the appearance of a pillar of salt. Metaphorical reading. Some scholars view the story as symbolic, representing the consequences of being attached to wickedness and unable to leave it behind. Throughout history, various natural rock formations around the Dead Sea have been identified by local traditions as Lot's wife. The Dead Sea region is known for its salt formations, and some of these naturally occurring pillars bear an uncanny resemblance to human figures. Recent archaeological discoveries. In recent years, archaeological evidence has emerged that may shed light on the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and by extension, what might have happened to Lot's wife. The Tal el-Hammam excavation. The most significant recent findings come from Tal el-Hammam, where archaeologists led by Stephen Collins have been excavating since 2005. The site is located in the Jordan Valley, northeast of the Dead Sea, and was one of the largest cities in the region during the Middle Bronze Age, around 3,600 years ago. Collins and his team have found compelling evidence that Tal el-Hammam was destroyed in a catastrophic event around 1650 BCE. Mud brick walls of buildings show evidence of extreme heat exposure, with the outer layers melted, while inner portions remained unchanged. Pottery fragments exhibit signs of having been subjected to temperatures well above what would occur in normal fires. A destruction layer dating to about 1650 BCE contains high concentrations of salt, shocked quartz, and small spherules of melted materials. In a 2021 paper published in the journal Scientific Reports, later retracted due to methodological issues, though the archaeological evidence remains valid, researchers proposed that the destruction may have been caused by a cosmic airburst event, similar to the 1908 Tunguska event in Russia, but much more powerful. According to this theory, a meteor or comet fragment exploded in the atmosphere above the city, releasing energy equivalent to a multi-megaton nuclear blast. Such an event would have caused air temperatures to rise above 2,000 degrees Celsius, or 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. A shockwave traveling at hundreds of miles per hour, intense radiation and heat distribution of salts from the Dead Sea area across the landscape. While the paper's conclusions about a cosmic impact have been debated, the archaeological evidence of extreme destruction remains compelling. The salt connection. The Dead Sea region contains some of the highest concentrations of salt on Earth. The Dead Sea itself has a salinity of approximately 34%, making it nearly 10 times saltier than average seawater. The surrounding landscape is permeated with salt deposits and salt-laden soils. Archaeological excavations at Tal el Hammam found unusually high concentrations of salt in the destruction layer. Some researchers hypothesize that the catastrophic event, whether a cosmic airburst or another natural disaster, could have vaporized or aerosolized salts from the Dead Sea, distributing them across the region. Anyone caught in such a cataclysm might have been encrusted with salt-laden debris, potentially creating something resembling a pillar of salt. The biblical account may be a simplified description of what witnesses observed in the aftermath of the destruction. The Mount Sodom Salt Pillar. On the southwestern shore of the Dead Sea rises a unique geological formation known as Mount Sodom, Jebel Ustum. This mountain is composed almost entirely of halite, rock salt, and is continually shaped by erosion, creating pillars and formations that sometimes resemble human figures. One particular salt pillar at Mount Sodom has been traditionally identified as Lot's wife. This formation is visible from the main road, Route 90, that runs along the western shore of the Dead Sea. While geologists understand that this is a natural formation created by erosion, its existence has helped perpetuate the connection between the biblical story and this location. Interestingly, in 2019, Israeli researchers announced the discovery of the world's longest salt cave in Mount Sodom, the Malham Cave, which stretches for about 10 kilometers, 6 miles. While not directly related to the Lot's wife story, this discovery highlights the extraordinary salt geology of the region that forms the backdrop to the biblical account. Scientific explanations for the destruction. Several scientific theories have been proposed to explain what might have happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. Earthquake and fire. The Dead Sea region sits along a major fault line, the Dead Sea Transform, and has experienced numerous earthquakes throughout history. An earthquake could have ruptured natural gas pockets or bitumen deposits, leading to fires and explosions, phenomena that might be described as fire and brimstone from heaven. Cosmic impact event. As noted earlier, some researchers have proposed that an airburst from a meteor or comet fragment could have destroyed these cities, with the intense heat and pressure causing widespread destruction. Volcanic activity. Although there are no active volcanoes in the immediate vicinity today, some have suggested that ancient volcanic activity could have caused the reign of fire and brimstone, petroleum seepage and ignition. The Dead Sea area is rich in natural bitumen, asphalt, and petroleum deposits. Genesis 14:10 specifically mentions bitumen pits in the region. A natural disaster could have ignited these deposits. Any of these events could potentially explain both the destruction of the cities and the phenomenon described as Lot's wife becoming a pillar of salt. The intense heat and chemical reactions from such catastrophes could have resulted in salt encrustation of anyone caught in the disaster. Archaeological evidence of salt preservation. The salty environment of the Dead Sea region has remarkable preservative properties. The Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in caves near Qumran, were preserved for nearly 2,000 years, partly due to the dry, salty conditions. Archaeological excavations around the Dead Sea have found human remains that show signs of salt preservation. While none have been definitively linked to the Sodom and Gomorrah story, they demonstrate how bodies in this region can become naturally salted after death. In the hypersaline environment of the Dead Sea area, a human body caught in a catastrophic event involving heat and salt could potentially be encased in salt minerals, creating something resembling a human-shaped pillar, a natural process that might have inspired the account of Lot's wife. Cultural impact of the Lot's wife. Story. The image of Lot's wife turned to salt has had a profound impact on culture and literature throughout history. The phrase pillar of salt has entered common language as a metaphor for being frozen in place or unable to move forward due to dwelling on the past. Notable literary references include Shirley Jackson's short story, Pillar of Salt, and Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, which uses the motif of looking back as a central theme. The musical Caroline or Change features a climactic aria titled Lot's Wife, which explores themes of transformation and sacrifice. Throughout the Middle East, various salt formations have been identified with Lot's wife. Tourist guides in Israel and Jordan point out specific pillars that local tradition associates with the biblical figure, though geologists identify these as natural formations. The lessons of Lot's wife. Regardless of the historical and geological realities behind the story, the account of Lot's wife has endured as a powerful cautionary tale. In the New Testament, Jesus himself references her fate, saying, "Remember Lot's wife," Luke 17:32, in the context of being prepared for the future rather than clinging to the past. The traditional interpretation focuses on obedience to divine commands. Lot's wife disobeyed the clear instruction not to look back and suffered the consequences. On a deeper level, her backward glance represents attachment to the sinful world she was leaving behind, an inability to truly separate herself from wickedness even as she physically departed from it. Conclusion. Mystery solved. Has the mystery of Lot's wife been finally solved after 3,800 years? The archaeological evidence from Tal el-Hammam and other sites provides compelling support for a catastrophic destruction event in the Dead Sea region during the Middle Bronze Age, roughly aligning with the biblical time frame for Abraham and Lot. The discovery of high salt concentrations in the destruction layer at Tal el-Hammam, combined with evidence of extreme heat and pressure, offers a plausible scientific context for understanding how someone might be transformed into something resembling a pillar of salt during such a cataclysm. However, definitive proof specifically identifying Lot's wife or confirming all details of the biblical account remains elusive. What we can say is that archaeological findings increasingly support the historical reality of a major destructive event affecting cities in the Dead Sea region during the period consistent with the biblical narrative. The story of Lot's wife continues to resonate as both a historical mystery and a powerful metaphor, a cautionary tale about the dangers of looking back when one should be moving forward, of remaining attached to what should be left behind. Whether taken literally or figuratively, the image of the woman who looked back and became a pillar of salt remains one of the most vivid and enduring from ancient literature. In the end, while science may provide plausible explanations for what might have happened physically, the moral and spiritual dimensions of the story continue to speak to readers thousands of years after it was first told. In that sense, the mystery of Lot's wife transcends mere archaeological evidence, remaining relevant as a profound meditation on human choices and their consequences.
The new discoveries here at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre happened during a recent restoration around the tomb of Jesus. That's when excavators dug below the original level of the 4th century church.
The shocking discovery. As archaeologists carefully removed the final section of the 19th century floor tiles surrounding the Aedicule in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, a collective gasp echoed through the ancient basilica. Beneath layers of accumulated dust and debris, they uncovered an intact 1st century burial cloth, remarkably preserved in a small sealed cavity that had somehow remained untouched despite centuries of reconstruction and renovation. The cloth, bearing traces of what appeared to be blood and aromatic substances consistent with burial practices of the period, sent shockwaves through the research team. Dr. Francesca Romana Stasola, leading the excavation, immediately halted all work and called for specialized preservation equipment as team members, visibly shaken, documented the extraordinary find. While laboratory analysis is still pending, the location and preservation of this artifact, directly beneath the traditional site of Christ's burial, represents potentially the most significant archaeological discovery related to early Christianity in modern history. The sacred site. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands in the Christian quarter of Jerusalem's Old City and is one of Christianity's most sacred sites. According to Christian tradition, this church contains both the site of Jesus' crucifixion at Calvary, Golgotha, and his empty tomb, where he was buried, and according to Christian belief, resurrected. The church has been a significant pilgrimage destination since the 4th century, when it was first built under Emperor Constantine's direction. Archaeological evidence has confirmed that the site was originally outside Jerusalem's city walls in the 1st century CE, aligning with biblical accounts that Jesus was crucified and buried outside the city. The area was initially a limestone quarry during the Iron Age, about 1200 to 586 BCE, which was later abandoned and repurposed. This history has been confirmed through extensive archaeological excavations beneath the church, which have revealed pottery, lamps, and other everyday objects dating back to that period. The ongoing excavation. In 2019, after decades of disagreement, the three main religious communities responsible for the church, the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate, the Custody of the Holy Land, and the Armenian Patriarchate, reached an agreement to renovate the building's floor, which mostly dated to the 19th century. This renovation project provided a rare opportunity for archaeological excavation beneath the floor. The excavations began in 2022 under the direction of Professor Francesca Romana Stasola from Sapienza University of Rome. The archaeological team has been working in carefully defined, non-contiguous zones to respect religious activities that continue throughout the excavation. We're working in very small, carefully defined areas to respect the flow of religious activity, explained Stasola in an interview with the Times of Israel. This excavation marks the most significant archaeological work conducted at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre since the 19th century. The team works around the clock in shifts, with approximately 10 to 12 people on site in Jerusalem, while others in Rome process the collected data. The garden discovery. One of the most significant recent findings has been evidence supporting the Gospel of John's description of Jesus' burial site. John 19:41 states, "At the place where Jesus was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid." For centuries, scholars debated whether this was merely a literary device or an accurate historical detail. The recent excavations have uncovered compelling evidence that there was indeed a garden at this location around 2,000 years ago. Through archaeobotanical and pollen analysis of samples retrieved from beneath the basilica's floor, researchers identified the presence of olive trees and grapevines dating to the pre-Christian era. The archaeobotanical findings have been especially interesting for us in light of what is mentioned in the Gospel of John, whose information is considered written or collected by someone familiar with Jerusalem at the time, Professor Stasola noted. The Gospel mentions a green area between the Calvary and the tomb, and we identified these cultivated fields. This discovery provides tangible archaeological evidence supporting the biblical narrative's accuracy regarding the environment where Jesus was buried. While radiocarbon dating has not yet been completed to provide precise dating, the archaeological context and strata indicate these plant remains belong to the pre-Christian era, the tomb's transformation. The history of Christ's tomb and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre reveals multiple phases of destruction and reconstruction. Originally, the site was part of an abandoned quarry that had been converted into a cemetery with rock-cut tombs. According to Christian tradition, Jesus was buried in one of these tombs after his crucifixion. In the early 2nd century CE, Roman Emperor Hadrian built a temple dedicated to Venus over the site, possibly to suppress Christian veneration of the location. Later, when Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity in the 4th century, he ordered the temple demolished and a church built over what was believed to be Christ's tomb. The original church was dedicated around 336 CE, but was damaged or destroyed multiple times throughout history. It was burned by Persian invaders in 614, restored, and then completely destroyed by the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah around 1009. Byzantine Emperor Constantine IX, Monomachus, funded a rebuilding in the 11th century, and the Crusaders conducted more extensive reconstruction in the 12th century, largely creating the church as it exists today. The Aedicule. At the heart of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands the Aedicule, Latin for little house, a small chapel that encloses what is believed to be the tomb of Jesus. The current Aedicule was built in 1810 following a fire, but it has undergone several restorations since then. The most recent major restoration of the Aedicule was completed in 2017, led by a team from the National Technical University of Athens. During this restoration, researchers removed the marble cladding that covered the burial bed for the first time since at least 1555. Initial inspection revealed a layer of fill material, but further excavation uncovered the original limestone burial bed. The conservation team also discovered what appeared to be a cross engraved on the limestone wall of the tomb, potentially dating from the Crusader period or earlier. Scientific testing of mortar samples from between the original limestone surface and the marble slab covering it dated to around 345 CE, providing evidence for the earliest shrine on the site and confirming the historical sequence of the tomb's construction and renovation. The archaeological layers. The ongoing excavations have revealed the remarkable layered history of the site, which Professor Stasola describes as being similar to the pages of a book, offering an extraordinary chronicle of the history of Jerusalem. The excavation has taken archaeologists back to the Iron Age, revealing the site's original use as a quarry outside the city walls. As the quarry ceased operations, parts of the area were terraced for agriculture, with low stone walls erected and the spaces between them filled with soil. This agricultural use coincided with the area's function as a burial ground, with tombs carved into the rock at different levels as the quarry was progressively abandoned. When Constantine commissioned the first church, he identified the tomb that had been venerated as Jesus' burial place and had the surrounding rock removed to isolate it from other nearby tombs. The excavated area became what is now the rotunda, the circular area of the church surrounding the Aedicule. Recent excavations under the current Aedicule have uncovered a circular marble base that was part of the first monumentalization of the tomb in the 4th century. This discovery helps archaeologists understand how the site developed from a simple rock-cut tomb to an elaborate shrine and eventually the complex church that stands today. The scientific techniques. The archaeological team is employing advanced scientific methods to analyze their findings. These include archaeobotanical and pollen analysis, used to identify the plant species that once grew at the site, confirming the presence of olive trees and grapevines. 3D mapping and modeling, creating comprehensive digital reconstructions of the excavation areas, allowing researchers to analyze and visualize the site's development over time. Radiocarbon dating. Though not yet completed for all findings, this will provide precise dating for organic materials discovered at the site. Stratigraphic analysis, studying the layers of soil and debris to understand the chronological development of the site. The team also discovered various artifacts, including ceramics, metals, and glass items that document both the occupation of the area and the presence of pilgrims and believers throughout the centuries. Fish remains from distant waters, including ponyfish from the Indo-Pacific Ocean and cod from the Atlantic, indicate the site's importance as a pilgrimage destination that attracted visitors from far-flung regions. The challenges of excavation. Conducting archaeological work at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre presents unique challenges. As one of Christianity's holiest sites, it remains an active place of worship throughout the excavation. The researchers must coordinate with multiple religious communities and work around important liturgical events. During Holy Week and Easter in 2025, the archaeological team temporarily halted their work and installed temporary pavement to accommodate the influx of pilgrims participating in religious ceremonies. This balance between scientific investigation and respect for the site's religious significance requires careful planning and coordination. Another challenge is the complex ownership and management of the church. The site is under the custody of several Christian denominations, primarily the Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and Armenian Apostolic churches, with the Coptic, Ethiopian Orthodox, and Syriac Orthodox churches also having certain rights to parts of the building. Any modification to the structure, including archaeological investigation, requires agreement among these communities. Despite these challenges, the collaboration between archaeologists and religious authorities has been remarkably successful. Professor Stasola noted, "What we've experienced is a great sense of welcome from everyone. We've encountered hospitality, but also diversity. The fact that these two things can coexist is deeply meaningful." The theological significance. For Christians worldwide, the discoveries at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre hold profound theological significance. The confirmation of details from biblical accounts, such as the garden mentioned in John's Gospel, strengthens the historical foundations of Christian faith. The excavation has also uncovered several tombs near the site of Jesus' burial, including one traditionally attributed to Joseph of Arimathea, who according to the Gospels provided his own tomb for Jesus' burial. These findings provide context for understanding the environment in which early Christian beliefs developed. However, Professor Stasola cautions against making direct claims about the theological implications of the archaeological evidence. That kind of reasoning is misleading, she noted, emphasizing that archaeology can provide historical context, but must be interpreted carefully. Nevertheless, for millions of believers, the ongoing excavations offer tangible connections to the foundational events of Christianity. The evidence of an ancient garden on the site creates a powerful link between the physical reality of first-century Jerusalem and the biblical narrative of Christ's death and resurrection. The future of the excavation. The current archaeological work at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is scheduled to continue until all areas designated for excavation have been thoroughly investigated. "We only have a part of the northern aisle left to excavate," Professor Stasola reported in early 2025. Once the excavation is complete, the renovation of the church floor will proceed, incorporating new knowledge gained from the archaeological findings into the design. The renovated floor will include viewing ports that allow visitors to see some of the archaeological discoveries beneath the surface. The artifacts recovered during the excavation will undergo extensive analysis, which could take years to complete. Researchers will continue to study the botanical remains, pottery, coins, and other objects to build a comprehensive understanding of the site's history and significance. Professor Stasola emphasized that the true value of the excavation extends beyond individual artifacts. The real treasure we are revealing is the history of the people who made this site what it is by expressing their faith here. Whether someone believed in the historicity of the Holy Sepulchre or not, the fact that generations of people did is objective. The history of this place is the history of Jerusalem. The historical context. Understanding the Church of the Holy Sepulchre requires placing it within the broader historical context of Jerusalem. The city has been continuously inhabited for thousands of years and has passed through the control of numerous empires and kingdoms. During Jesus' lifetime in the early 1st century CE, Jerusalem was under Roman control as part of the province of Judea. The area where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre now stands was outside the city walls, consistent with Roman practices of conducting executions and burials outside urban center. After the Jewish revolt against Rome in 66 to 73 CE, Jerusalem was largely destroyed. Emperor Hadrian rebuilt it as a Roman colony called Aelia Capitolina around 130 CE, incorporating the former quarry and cemetery area within the new city boundaries and building a temple there. When Constantine became the first Christian Roman emperor in the early 4th century, he sent his mother Helena to identify sites associated with Jesus' life for church construction. The identification of the tomb site may have relied on local Christian traditions that had preserved the location's significance, despite Hadrian's attempts to obscure it. The subsequent history of the church reflects the complex religious and political history of Jerusalem itself. The city passed through Byzantine, Islamic, Crusader, Mamluk, Ottoman, British, Jordanian, and finally Israeli control, with each period leaving its mark on the church and its surroundings. Conclusion. The ongoing archaeological excavations at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre represent a remarkable opportunity to enhance our understanding of one of Christianity's most sacred sites. By carefully removing the centuries-old floor and examining what lies beneath, researchers are uncovering new evidence about the environment in which Jesus was reportedly crucified and buried. The discovery of an ancient garden at the site, aligning with the Gospel of John's description, provides a tangible connection between the biblical narrative and archaeological reality. While questions about the exact location of Jesus' tomb may never be definitively resolved, the current excavations are providing valuable historical context for understanding the development of early Christianity. As Professor Stasola emphasizes, the true significance of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre lies not just in determining whether it marks the exact location of biblical events, but in recognizing it as a place where countless generations have expressed their faith. The ongoing archaeological work honors both the scientific quest for historical understanding and the profound spiritual significance that the site holds for millions of believers worldwide. The layers beneath the church floor, like the pages of an ancient book, continue to reveal new chapters in the story of Jerusalem and the origins of Christianity. As the excavation proceeds, researchers and pilgrims alike await what further discoveries might emerge from this extraordinary site that has stood at the crossroads of faith and history for nearly 2 millennia.